Thank you for watching the Housing Oregon YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Slide decks from the presenters are going to be available below. Thanks for watching.
Well, hi, everyone. I am Jackie Keogh. I'm the Executive Director of Rooted Homes. It's lovely to see all you Portland-centric faces. I previously worked for Proud Ground and Portland Housing Bureau, and it's exciting to share what we've been putting together in Central Oregon. My better half.
Not better half. So I'm Tom Kemper. I am actually, I am the former executive director of Housing Works. And so they tapped me because Housing Works guys were too busy to come today. So, they drafted me to do this, but I am working on this deal with Jackie. So, it'll be fun. That's part of it. So anyway, yeah, I retired from there in 6 years ago. Great organization. So should we start here? So I guess it's what I want to do is just tell you a story about how this thing got started, because it's really kind of interesting, because Housing Works had done some sort of one-off land lease deals where we'd get a donation from a developer, and then we'd build a home, and we would lease the land and sell the home to keep it affordable at an 80% AMI deal, and it allowed some lower income families to live in like Northwest Crossing and places like that. So it was like, wow, this is really kind of cool, but it was really one off, and so. There was a woman who was trying to get this community land trust going, and she was having trouble getting traction on it. And so we just had coffee, and I said, well, we've been trying to do that, but I mean, it's sort of, we're really focused on multifamily, and we had a lot of stuff going on, and it was like, gosh, maybe we should try to support you in doing this. And that really was the beginnings of Rooted Homes over coffee. And it started slow. And we effectively were sort of financial partners, if you will, at the start, with some development oversight. And then Jackie got involved, and things really started getting ramped up, obviously. But, and we're on our sixth deal now after, 6-8 years. So it's pretty cool how over just a discussion over coffee, this thing, that you create that seed, you create that partnership, and it grows and grows. And, the current deal that's under construction between Rooted Homes and Housing Works, they actually took down a large piece of very sought after dirt in West Bend, and they split it into pieces, and Rooted Homes doing affordable for sale housing deal, and then Housing Works is doing the rental deal, and the sixth deal is even more. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's a whole mixed use community with for sale, rental. It's got a child care facility, and it's got an office building. So it's really, I mean, that partnership has grown over time, and it's pretty exciting, actually. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and what we want to show you is how we did it in Central Oregon, with the idea that we are consulting with other housing authorities throughout Oregon to how they could stand up a CLT or a homeownership organization within their housing authority to serve residents from 30% all the way to 80% area median income. Got two computers. All right. So essentially, the problem that we are trying to solve is in Central Oregon, you have suburban Bend, which is about 100,000 people. Their median home price is over $800,000. And beyond that, you enter significantly rural territory. And so with Housing Works has and continues to have a growing 7,000 person wait list for their rental units. Those folks literally can't move out of those units because if they were to, they can't afford the market rate rent, never mind get close to the market rate ownership in their area. So they would be actually choosing to displace themselves over an hour away and Central Oregon isn't known for its public transportation. So you're really in a situation where your rental clients aren't moving through the continuum of housing. They're actually turning down jobs and bonuses to stay under area median income, which is the opposite effect of what we want. And so Rooted Homes, when we started, we were a very small entity, and we weren't able to leverage the construction lending that we needed to build to scale. And so what we received was a significant investment from Housing Works in exchange for Housing Works being the guarantor of our entity. So if our entity were to dissolve, then Housing Works would gain all of our assets and debt. That's really important because in the land trust model, your homeowners, no matter what, need to have a way to sell their homes. And so always having a guarantor on your land trust is critical. And the fact that our partner was willing to play that role allowed us to jointly purchase land, form LLCs together. If there was an ownership deal, Rooted Homes was the majority stakeholder, rental the other way around. And so we started, as we said, 6 deals. So we've started doing deals that started just with rental or ownership and then started building to ideally building mixed use, mixed income communities that Ben pops out all the time, right? Planned communities, but these just happen to be affordable. And so the goal was that residents can stay in the site, not displace themselves, but have economic gains. So someone could go from supportive housing to rental to a land trust ownership, all in the same community. Their kids get to stay in the same schools, they have the same commute to work, and they build family stability in that community. So if you look at this from a resident's point of view, Housing Works was able to do something that most housing authorities can't, is that they take their housing choice voucher, and housing choice voucher clients can actually pay their mortgage for 13 years. And Housing Works has a nonprofit called Family Forward. And Families Forward only job is to identify clients who are ready to move out of their rentals into subsidized affordable ownership. And by doing that, 30% of Rooted Homes' entire client portfolio are housing choice voucher clients. Most homeownership agencies, it's difficult to serve folks under 60% area median income. And with this, we're able to serve folks at lower income, averaging 30% area median income for that group of folks. It's also really beneficial for single parent or single family led households, because that housing choice voucher essentially acts as a second income stream for the household, so they can actually afford to buy a home, whereas before they would only be locked into renting. And so this Families Forward program is the client's side that we both jointly staff and manage. We even have an IDA program that collectively comes to the Families Forward agency, and we dole it out for both rental and ownership needs. And so this idea was that for so long, affordable housing developers have siloed developments just because that's what the state tells us we have to do. You have to apply for rental, you have to apply for ownership. Heaven forbid, commercial touches your rental or ownership. That, by creating communities based on state regulation, it actually hurts the clients we're trying to serve. So what we did was we flipped this paradigm and said, we're going to build communities for clients, and we're going to find ways around the rules, which we have. So really what a small land trust or any small homeownership agency doesn't have the cash or the collateral to purchase land. So Housing Works started buying up land, slightly like a land bank, using significant reserves to buy land and sit on it until we essentially master plan these sites. We also were very competitive, like Tom was saying, because we were able to, with any jurisdiction who wants rental or ownership, offer both. And so we were very competitive during site selections from the local counties. We started essentially creating these LLCs for shared interest, and then separating the lots because the state requires that. And so one site probably has 20 different lots for uses, but the community sees it as one. We also do significant resident-driven design where rental and ownership residents get to design both the site plan and the home designs. And our architects, some are sitting in this room, are really thoughtful with us, and they allow us to make real-time changes. So it's not built for the community, it's built with the community, and that buy-in has seen significant increases in the number of folks who apply for our housing. And that's important, especially on the home ownership side, because those clients are our takeout financing.
So that kind of leads us to the deal that we're working on right now. So Housing Works bought a site in just west of the Dry Canyon in Redmond. And so the concept was, okay, so what are we going to do here in terms of creating a really cool mixed use community? And so there's 18 for sale affordable units. There's 60 units of rental housing. There's a 10,000 square foot, 2-story office building that will eventually house both Housing Works and Rooted Homes. And then finally, the fourth element is a child care facility that'll house 44 kids in a Head Start program that's undertaken by Neighbor Impact. So I mean, it's a very, very cool mixed use community. And it can only really kind of happen to this really unique partnership that we have with Rooted Homes.
So, and what we also found is an economies of scale with this site. So the site has the exact same development team, including general contractors. So on these partnerships, we've seen a 25% reduction in hard costs because we can attract bigger general contractors. They can stay on the site for literally years, from staging to bulk purchases. We're essentially driving down the cost to build, which allows us to price the homes, the ownership units at a lower rate. So we can see a higher rate of housing choice voucher clients coming from rental to ownership. The other piece I would add is that we're also able to jointly go after funding. And so, there's a road through the center of this, and this would, with any other partnership, be a fight, right? Who's paying for the road? Is the city paying for the road? But we have funders, specifically private funders, investing in the kind of this idea of a net zero community. And so we have funders supporting kind of not just the road, but the bike lanes and the walkability, because this idea is a one-stop shop for the clients. So they can go pay their rent, get social service supports, drop their kids off at daycare, all on the same site. They don't need to have a second car. We specifically provide limited parking and give everyone an electric bike and have shared EV charging and EV vehicles to essentially go beyond building affordable housing and say, how do we build a carbon neutral community? And what that starts with is transportation options and walkability. All of Housing Works units are LEED Platinum, and all of Rooted Homes units are net zero, which means that they produce as little energy as they consume. They also significantly reduce the utility costs for clients. So our average utility cost is less than $12 a month, which gives clients more discretionary income and savings, which they've gone back to school, they've invested in their kids' college plan. These are real examples of what kind of folks are doing with this quality net zero build as a client. Oh, gotta do both. So we thought this partnership was worthy of preserving. And so we've taken the next step with this idea that partnership is only as strong as the two partners. And so Rooted Homes and Housing Works essentially will be integrating, where we'll have a shared majority of board of directors so that the staff-driven current projects can go beyond staff-led to go to board-led strategic planning. We also will be able to, from a financial perspective, use one another's balance sheets, really Rooted Homes using Housing Works balance sheet to and get our funders to invest further in our construction loans. Right now, Rooted Homes has 3 affordable ownership projects of 100 units total, and we have the opportunity to go to do more, but we don't have the balance sheet to do more. And so right now, as separate entities, Housing Works is lending us that money, but it's being tied up. So the bank says you have to, Housing Works can't touch that money, which isn't helpful. We want to use that money for our revolved land banking. And so by being essentially a blended component unit, we can touch that money and still use it as collateral. And it essentially allows us to do pre-development and due diligence and land acquisition the same pace that we're doing active construction. Long-term, our goal is to better align our resident services so that both the clients who come to Rooted Homes and the clients to come to Housing Works are one. This idea that it's on the clients is harmful, that they have to come to us through our process and then go to Housing Works through their process. That's why people hate applying for affordable housing. Our goal is to be a one-stop shop from all the way from supportive housing to ownership housing. So they come to us and we have a yes for them, and we have different buckets for opportunities of which we will place them. And then we will work with those clients and build that trust, and we'll move them through the continuum, but they'll stay working with the same resident service provider their entire time as a renter or a homeowner. And it also gives significant increase for production. What we see from the state a lot is that sometimes rental is significantly invested and sometimes ownership is significantly invested. It allows us to be nimble, and so we can go after new opportunities together. We also have a contract where we share staff. And so if we have more needs on the rental side one year, our entire 2 development teams can lean over to the rental side or vice versa. And so it allows us to be flexible based on how much funding we have for different types of development.
So what makes it possible to have a partnership like that? I think, there's like 4 main attributes. I think communication is probably the most important. We have weekly meetings with the staff between the leadership of both Housing Works and Rooted Homes, and transparency. People are just upfront about what their motives are, what they need, and it just creates, sort of a basis for cutting through the BS and getting stuff done. It's way more effective. And then cooperation. It's critical that it's a give and take thing, and it's working together to make things happen. And the interesting thing is that you can get more done when there's tremendous synergy when you work together. And then finally, there's just a lot of creativity in this partnership. The ability to bounce ideas off of the other players is really huge. So there just really is tremendous synergy in the partnership between Rooted Homes and Housing Works.
Yeah, and I would also say that from a leadership perspective, when we work collectively together as 2 of the biggest affordable housing developers in the area, it allows us to go to jurisdictions and essentially solve some of them very small rural jurisdictions like Prineville or Lapine, essentially potentially solve a lot of their housing needs with one large scale development of 150 units. And so instead of wasting time kind of fighting for the land or fighting for what should be here by offering everything on a single site, the jurisdiction is much more readily interested in providing that. And we found the state has been funding Housing Works more on their LIHTC deals when it's on this mixed use, mixed income community. So we share this, and we would be happy to answer many questions. But I would say that we're not the only ones doing this. So Ashland, City of Ashland, the Southern Coast, Coos and Curry Housing Authority, both of them are actively working to prop a land trust up in their housing authority. And I think it's hopefully will be the next kind of wave of how rental and ownership work more hand in hand. So questions?
Yeah. Well, I think they start with a rental voucher, and I mean, Housing Works is really focused on the hand up, not hand out, and so that through their Families Forward organization, they really focus on you know getting their clients prepared to improve their lives, to stabilize their financial situation, and then actually move into home ownership. And so they're able to actually get to a place where they qualify for a home, and then Housing Works is actually able, I believe, to convert it. It's subject to the financial constraints of a regular voucher, but then the tenant can buy a home with using that voucher as sort of a payment.
So essentially, there's two types of vouchers, and there's probably folks here in this room who are better experts than I on the voucher program. But some are tied to developments, right? You apply, and you say, I need vouchers for this, tax credit deal. Others are just open, and that's usually what Housing Works uses. They majoritively have vouchers that are transferable. So clients are going to market rate renter, landlords to get that place, and that placement is very low, right? They don't want to take it. And so we take the majority of, not the majority, but we take a lot of those transferable ones. If it's transferable, they don't have to. This essentially is they have that 13 years. And then the question is like, well, what happens at year 14, right? We don't want them to foreclose on their home. So during those 13 years, they're working with a financial coach to get them in a place where their economic gains have allowed them to essentially lose the voucher, and after 13 years still be able to pay their relatively affordable mortgage. I mean, our homes are averaging at $250,000. So a homeowner's mortgages are less than $1,400 a month. And so there's this sliding scale. Now, there's a lot of, about 30% of Rooted Homes' entire clients actually are seniors. And for any seniors on disability, they'll keep their voucher forever. And so we actually, although you should lose it, folks who are on disability don't, and because of that, it maintains with them.
Yeah, remember that there's a payment standard with the voucher. So that like for a 3-bedroom, it's like $1,400 or something like that. So the client, if the client's income keeps increasing, the amount of the HUD subsidy gets reducing all along. And so the whole game is to have them become economically self-sufficient and be able to give that voucher up, to give to another family, and put them in the same kind of position.
Yeah, and I mean, to jump off of that, the whole goal initially was also to, when you move someone into a homeownership unit, you free up a rental unit. And that was a big goal of Housing Works being one of the biggest producers of rental housing in Central Oregon. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Let's look at that.
you want to take it or do it? Well, the whole point is to create an affordable community. I mean, you could actually partner with a market developer and do a bigger development that would include a market aspect to a project. So I mean, there you could have, for example, we could have bought 10 acres and we would have brought another, market developer in to do single family homes. Hayden Homes could come in and do their deal. But the clear intent of Rooted Homes and Housing Works was to create, an affordable community for, that would be affordable to lower income families, provide them with a really high quality housing opportunity, give them a home that's really nice, that just costs less than the market.
Yeah, and I would say Housing Works and Rooted Homes are doing that. So like, to answer your question bluntly, yes. In a lot of areas, I live in a neighborhood in Bend that looks just like this, and it is all market rate. So yes, is your answer. But what we are also doing is when land comes into the UGB, Rooted Homes and Housing Works for certain cities like Redmond are the primary affordable housing developers. And we work with market rate developers who are building out a mixed income, including majoritively market rate homes led by Edlin and Company. So they're building out hundreds of units of market rate, and then we are adding to that by providing affordable ownership and affordable rental. So in that type of community called Skyline Village, that will have 400 units. It'll have a community park, and that community is actually taking this one step further, right? Is adding that market rate, which I think is really important because we all know like mixed income communities are how clients thrive. So you can do that.
Remember the context, think about how expensive housing is in Central Oregon. The median home price is over 800,000 in Bend. So if Rooted Homes can sell a home for 250, with subsidized financing and a down payment assistance, I mean, it really drives an affordable opportunity for a lower income family. And that's the game. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and the city of Redmond has done something really interesting where on that site I was mentioning, they are selling the land to market rate developers, right? Hayden Homes, D.R. Hortons to build. And then they're taking the profits of that and they are building out the infrastructure for the affordable projects, because we all know, especially in Central Oregon, it's the infrastructure that's the most expensive. And so I think a strategy like that with the city taking charge of developing the infrastructure, and I've talked to Portland Housing Bureau, they're looking at doing something similar, is a way to speed up affordable housing production. And so we're really happy with our partner at the city of Redmond for that kind of land acquisition, land sales strategy.
No, I suspect that there'll be, in the 60 units, there'll be an allocation of project-based vouchers.
Right, and so someone in that situation could leave, they just couldn't take their voucher. So we would have to work with them probably on a longer timeline to get them ready for home ownership. Oh, you can finish your thought. We have plenty of time. Changing as increasing or decreasing? Well, average AMI in Deschutes County has gone up by 10% year over year for quite a bit. And that's reflective of folks moving to a Zoom town, not reflective of local wages. And so it creates this false, it falsely increases area median income where our clients there income is not increasing. But it does allow for that reason for middle income buyers to potentially get into our program. And Rooted Homes doesn't just do 80%. So we go all the way up to 120% area median income. Those homes have to be fully privately funded because there's no state program that for ownership that allows us to fund up to beyond 80%. But we have a number of private loan providers and grantors, including folks in the room, who have funded this ability to go up to 120. And I think that's really powerful. It's also powerful because lots of folks don't meet state requirements for residency. And so sometimes we serve folks who have an I-10 number and they are under 80%, but they can't go into state-funded housing. And so we're using that as a way to support our Latinx population, about 80% of which in Central Oregon have an I-10 number.
Well, and the other thing is, remember, our goal is to have families increase their income level. I mean, we push, we train, we work with them to make that happen. I mean, that's a very important part of the Families Forward program.
Steve? Yes. So the homeownership has its own separate HOA managed by HOA management firm, and then the rental has their own property management. Currently, Housing Works has an internal property management firm, and so that is how it's split out. With the daycare, that land will be owned by Housing Works and will be leased to Neighbor Impact because, again, ironically, there's lots of funding to pay rent for daycares. There's no funding to buy land for your daycare. And so by using that land lease model from the Housing Works side, Neighbor Impact can afford this, this daycare, whereas otherwise they wouldn't be able to.
Although there is funding now for childcare, which is very unique. It's this through the Biz Oregon CCIF program and the Build Up program that's with OHCS. And that's new funding that's just coming out. In fact, the first round of financing from Biz Oregon for CCIF closes this week. So, and we're putting in an application for a chunk of that money as a big piece of that project financing.
The other thing I would add is that these are all separate sites because beyond applying to the state, Rooted Homes as a nonprofit does not prevailing wage, whereas Housing Works does. And so it's important to us that it takes, actually a long time for the land use to go through before we can even apply to the state for this funding, because we want, for example, that Rooted Homes parcel to be completely separate. So this site that you're looking at, I think, has about 20 different parcels. Yeah. So I would say that the beauty of this partnership is that we are partners first and like land developers second. And so actually we've probably done a very poor job of like doing a contract and contract management of how we share that. But essentially all of Rooted Homes LLCs have a minority shareholder from Housing Works. So generally they have 49% of all of our LLCs, which we develop the site. Housing Works owns the land and then they sell it at no cost to us for our portions. They maintain the rest. And then in unique situations, we develop together, like the road, for example. We went after funding together for that. And so that we jointly project manage that. But it's not a problem because, we both have small teams. So it's like, I'm not talking about more than 3 people, some working on that. Can you repeat the second part of your question, please?
It'll end up with housing works ownership. You know, it'll be a regular LIHTC 9999.01 during the 15 years, and then it'll go to housing works.
Yeah, and so Rooted Homes being a land trust, you know, we're stewarding that land. Land trusts can steward land under rental and commercial as well, but not with LIHTC. And so because of that, we have separated out our parcels. But there's other states do a really good job at having the land trust have all of this under its land because they see it as like a community ownership of the daycare, of the community playground in perpetuity. But Oregon doesn't do that.
It continues to grow, unfortunately. But every year we do a lottery. So, you know, it's not, you're not, you know, you don't have a slot on a list. We do a lottery.
Yeah, and the lottery is really interesting actually because Central Oregon is not that diverse. Fair Housing has actually struck down a wait list because it as the community diversifies, it puts those diverse clients behind less diverse clients. So we both have required to do lotteries. But Rooted Homes does a weighted lottery. So we give preference to Housing Works clients, whether they have a housing choice voucher or not. And then additionally, we give preference to first generation home buyers. And this is like probably another presentation, but we also give preference to employee partners. So we preference essentially essential workers whose employers are providing subsidy for these projects. Because we know that the cost of affordable housing has increased and subsidies has remained flat. And so that's the gap that we've been able to fill to meet the quality of our homes and meet that net zero standard. Yeah, Teresa. Okay, so many things. Well, first of all, it's always the minutia, right, that gets in the way. So Housing Works, because it's a public agency, actually turns all of our LLCs for profit, and the state will not give funding to for-profit LLCs. And so we actually have to take all the funding in as a nonprofit umbrella corporation and then dole it out to the LLCs, which is just an accounting nightmare. And I would wish that we could find a way beyond that. Secondarily, I think leadership is really important. Myself and the current executive director of Housing Works, David Brandt, have a really strong relationship, but soon into that relationship, we realized this needs to go beyond us, which is why we've started to blend the two organizations into a blended component unit so that we can preserve it beyond leadership changes. I think that's really important. The other piece is that I would say is that sometimes, because this site, for example, has so much different code, right? Like different code for all the different types of projects. And for more rural communities, that's been difficult for their jurisdictions to wrap their head around. It's not only one of their first affordable housing projects, it's their first cottage cluster, it's their first, mixed use office building. And so I would say that takes a much longer time than it should, which costs us. But we do end up saving those costs from the economies of scale that I mentioned. What I would also love to do is be able to accept funding together. I know that's like a big wish list, but by having to split it out, it's really time consuming. So essentially, if one of us gets funded for like a road that we both share, we have to go into a separate contract for our GC just for that road. We have to act like that's a separate project. And again, it just creates bureaucracy when there shouldn't be. And so we essentially are project managing all these mini projects, including, one grantor just is granting the bike paths in the sidewalk. So that has to be completely separate. And so that in itself is slightly it's not problematic, but it's just time consuming. So if we had more funding for folks wanting to fund the entire umbrella, that would be helpful. Any more questions? Okay, well, we're early, but I love giving people time back. So please, you're all busy, important people. You can take some more time to do what you do, and thanks for doing it.